Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. Our guest today is Dr. Marissa Nichols. Marissa is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Student Athlete Experience and the Director of the Cameron Institute. Greetings, Dr. Nichols. Thanks for joining us.
Greetings, Ty. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad you're on. We're almost 6 years there at Cal, right? And I believe around 15 years in the industry. Yes?
Yes.
Student athlete development background. Prior to Cal, I think you were at Boston University, the inaugural and first position leadership and career development for student athletes.
Yes.
Then was it an institute or academy? What was the program at Boston University?
The overall program was the Bloom Family Leadership Initiative, and then within it, we had the Bloom Family Academy, as well as a few other initiatives.
And so you were over all of the initiatives, or what was your role in that?
I had been a one-person show for a few stops, and now I'm grateful to be in a place where I get to have a pretty amazing team behind me. But I did get my start leading everything on my own, from examining what the strategy was, building the curriculum, developing the outcomes, and trying to help move our field forward.
Super interesting. How long were you at Boston University?
I was there about 2.5 years.
And that was your first position of leadership or that type of leadership at Boston?
It was. Previously, when I did my PhD at UNLV, I was in the industry, but more as a coordinator and academic advisor. So the role at BU was certainly a next step in terms of my leadership.
Okay,
and oversight.
Okay, so then you had your PhD when you got that role at BU?
Yes.
Okay, so now you had learned all this education and all these dissertations, and now you're in this leadership position. Because you studied, from what I understand, higher education leadership, right?
I did.
Tell me what you instantly tried to implement and apply at Boston University, and then we'll get to what you're implementing and have applied here at Cal in terms of the higher education leadership, the meaningful and high performance experiences and those types of things.
Absolutely. And I always want to start by acknowledging and honoring Dr. Cressida Navarro, who was such a trailblazer in our field and did an incredible job blending this practitioner-scholar approach, which really inspired my path. So when I was doing my doctorate, I knew I wanted to examine more closely what the factors were that went into high performance and having a meaningful experience as a student athlete. I had a transformative experience myself as an athlete, and I was ready to study and implement the right services and opportunities to impact the athlete at a high level. So when I got to BU, I had started to take a liking and understanding in how do we quantify success in our field. I knew that student athlete development was so critical to what we do in college athletics, but I noticed that there weren't any clear standards. With academics, we know what success is. Nutrition, strength and conditioning, we have clear benchmarks, compliance. There is a real hole. And so that led me down a path of really trying to understand success in this field. I'll tell you a story. I asked one of my athletic directors once, how will you know that I'm successful? And the response was, I'll just know. And for me, that was a clear sign that we have a real opportunity to define these standards. And so when I got to BU, I engaged in a process of understanding, and similar to Cal, what the overall strategic plan of the university was, what the goals of the athletic department were, what were the interests of the donor, because both BU and Cal received generous gifts to make this work possible. So what were the donors' interests, stakeholders? We did a needs assessment. We did a coach listening tour, and gathering as much data as we could, did some benchmarking of the field to then decide what the core outcomes are going to be for the program. What's the ultimate measure of success? And so we did that across career and leadership development. And then everything that we did from a program or service or initiative standpoint needed to map up to reach those ultimate goals. And I'm happy to go into any and all of that as you see fit.
Well, it's interesting, I guess, because right off the bat, you were like, okay, so how am I going to be evaluated here? Like, how do I define success right off the bat? Like, I don't know where the standards are across the industry, but here in this role, especially because you were the first person there, this needed to be defined clearly for you. So tell me about when you did all that, when you defined all that and you set those standards and then took it back to the athletics director. Tell me how it was received, because this person said to you, "I'll just know," and you're like, "That's not good enough. I'm an overachiever. I need to know where the line is to overachieve." So tell me about when you presented this framework of evaluation and success definition.
Yes, it was pretty well received, and it turned into a collaborative conversation as well, and an iterative process. Hey, here's what I'm seeing as opportunities based on our student athletes here, based on all the evaluation and benchmarking. Do these ultimate goals of making sure the athletes are landing satisfying post grad opportunities and that they have a community that they're going to continue impacting? And um, we hadn't yet gotten into the athletic performance side yet, which I do at Cal, but showing what the results could be, iterating those, and then along the way, being able to present that at our senior staff sessions and making sure that it was really a conversation. Then that helped a lot with the buy-in and change management part.
Yeah, which is excellent. You think when you think back to that time, you said 2.5 years there, I believe. How
Yes.
many of your goals do you feel like you accomplished in that 2.5 years? When you finally put those things into place to be evaluated by, how much do you think you accomplished before you left?
Well, I'm always my hardest critic, but
Yeah.
we did a we did a nice job in a few particular areas. One of the goals was also to bring our leadership academy in-house.
Okay.
It had primarily before the role at BU been outsourced, and so we were successfully able to do that through partnering with the business school and our faculty, creating core competencies, delivering, and based on student athlete behavior changes and learnings, we were able to really see some good results there. We increased our overall donations. We built the Terrier Network, which was a robust system of alums that were willing to give back to BU student athletes. And I think we created a really solid foundation. And I feel one of my callings, if you will, is to build and lead and being able to set a foundation that the next colleague or teammate can jump into. And that's been Emily Howard, who's done a great job there. And so I feel that we were able to build quite a lot, especially with it being a small team.
Right. So you feel like you left it better than you found, definitely left it better than you found it, and left it in a position where the next person could be successful. I love it. You come to Cal. Tell me about what you were recruited to do at Cal. Like, was the Cameron Institute already a thing? Or they said, hey, we want to do this thing and we need somebody to lead it. Tell me about that aspect of your role there at Cal.
In 2019, Cal received a major gift from Brian Cameron, and he's incredible. I feel so lucky to have him as the main donor.
Okay.
And things were going so well at BU. I really had no intent of leaving, but when I saw this open up at Cal, it was a real game changer for student athlete development to have such a big endowment and to be able to build a team of 11 or 12 teammates. It was pretty unheard of. Pitt, Ohio State, Florida State, Alabama, other schools, Texas Tech have had been able to build out some of their teams, but this was really a different commitment to resources, and it was going to be two-thirds donor driven and funded. And so I felt a great privilege and responsibility to step into that role and see how we could build the model at Cal to be a model for other institutions and to get the attention of athletic directors about how critical this can be. And I've been on a quest to make sure we show how does this move the bottom line? If the bottom line is winning and the bottom line is ensuring our student athletes have a meaningful experience,
Yeah.
what can we do to show that everything that we're offering and what the students are engaging in is helping move the needle on those particular outcomes?
So when they recruited you, they said, we want to accomplish these things, or to tell me, I'm talking about the first conversation. We're talking about building this thing, and we know what you built at Boston University, and here's how we think we can be successful, or we need somebody to head up our student athlete experience. Here's we're thinking about this instant. Like, I need that
Yes.
conversation. Tell me about that because you had to be incremental into making sure it was something that you wanted to be involved in. So tell me a little bit about that conversation.
Yes, thanks for keeping me on track. Yeah, it was really centered around they wanted a leader to come in, develop the whole program, hire the staff, and the focus was gonna be 3 main pillars of leadership and personal development is one, career development is the second, and community engagement is the third. The impetus for the donor was that he wanted career development at first to be fully for football, and Cal was able to help him expand to serving all 30 teams, all 900 of our student athletes across these 3 pillars, and so that paired with eventual sport administration oversight, were the initial conversations about what they needed and wanted at Cal at that time.
Okay. And then did you have to convince them of how this would affect the bottom line? Or, I mean, you got a donor willing to give a bunch of money, and so that's a big thing. But then the ongoing process of this is how this can having this in place can impact winning, and then winning affects the bottom. Like, tell me about that. You mentioned it a little bit, but tell me a little bit more about that thought process and how that thought process have evolved over the last 5 or almost 6 years there at Cal.
Yes. When I initially got there, those conversations were a little bit more implicit, but I did know that our donor, it was my hardest interview. He's who he is and has the resources he has for a reason and in terms of how he thinks and works. And so it was a little bit more implied. And then I definitely took responsibility in wanting to get clear about what are those outcomes and how can we be visionary about them. And one of the things we did, Ty, is when I did the thorough evaluation of the landscape at Cal and nationally, we didn't have sports psychology practitioners at Cal. We didn't have mental performance as a role or a key initiative. And so I saw a window to build that into the Institute. And with the support of our athletic director at the time, Jim Knowlton and Brian Cameron, our donor, we positioned in Cal's first applied sports psychology professional. And to to be honest with you, it's turned out to be the gateway to the Institute. We now have 4 full-time mental performance consultants because the demand and impact has been so high. And that has been a key driver in helping demonstrate how the work of those professionals has a relationship to team trajectories,
Okay.
to individual athletic performance, but also more non-traditionally, when we talk about career development, we measure and look at are student athletes feeling less stressed? Are they able to focus on their sport and school more because we have the resources to provide them with opportunities for their career? Do they actually have an improved team culture, a different perspective on their teammates, uh, increased gratitude because of their work in the community? And so we're able to also look at some of the indirect areas that can impact performance, in addition to the more direct areas, such as sports psychology, that impact performance.
Right. Interesting. And then 6 years or almost 6 years, you have a full class that has come through, right? Since you started, they come in as freshmen and now they've been through the whole process in the institute and have graduated and maybe have a job, first year or second year in their job. Tell me about that aspect when you go back and look at the things you've put in place, Cal, especially this big gift from Cameron, and how you look at that class that was a freshman and now they've gone on to get their jobs relative to the things you said, mental performance to outcomes, careers, all those things.
Yes, it's been really special. I have to mention we launched during the pandemic. So we're launching virtually this whole new organization within Cal Athletics. I wish I would have spent more time on the change management component up front.
Okay.
But we just had our 5-year celebration. It was a big event in June. All of our donors and supporters, community partners were there, in addition to coaches and student athletes. And it was pretty special, that milestone and having the quantitative data to demonstrate that first class, like you said, what the gains were, but also to hear more qualitatively the impact. And so for success in terms of the Institute, uh, I should also mention, like, fully endowing this institute is a big part of that. So I've been heavily involved in fundraising. We're at a $20 million endowment now. It needs to be at about 55 million to be self-sustaining. But as far as the student athletes who graduated, uh, we have the data around how they've been able to land their golden opportunity, something that's satisfying to them and aligns with their interests. Um, we have a lot of great outcomes. Over 90% of the athletes have a clear community that they plan to continue impacting and a avenue for what that looks like with their time, their talent, or their treasure. And then we've had some tremendous outcomes with our teams in terms of their trajectory over 4 or 5 years and the elevation in performance, as well as individual gains. So we look at before and after they work with their mental performance consultant, and we look at statistical changes. We look at just overall improvement in their performance. We measure their mindset before and after, team culture before and after, and actually also well being, because we all know that happy athletes or healthy athletes are going to
Right.
perform better. So that's a big part of it too. And the other two things we measure is how much of an impact the institute had on choosing Cal. And so a lot of our seniors were able to point back to how that was a helpful factor when coming on their visits with their families. And additionally, how many of them have a meaningful relationship with someone on our team. That's an important factor to the donor. And so there's been a lot of great wins, especially with that first cohort that
Yeah,
were.
that's interesting. The quantitative data, I guess, is the jobs and them liking the jobs that they were looking for and those types of things, right? When you say that some of the data is quantitative.
Yes, yes, and a lot of them are like 33% of them are going to grad school, and so like it essentially that we want to see them land a job, get into grad school, or continue their professional athletic career.
Yep.
So that's some of the quantitative data on the career side.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love that, right? I got this quantitative data, we got this qualitative data. Um, you mentioned two things that I want to dive into. First, you said you wish you had done more of the change management stuff at the beginning. Expound on that.
We worked hard to build our coaches into this model, which is something I'm proud of. And we got their buy-in up front on our model and what we were going to focus on, their buy-in around our hires. And we work with their coaches too. We provide executive coaching, and we're at practice and competition and helping them implement their mental performance and culture improvements within their team. But I missed really the idea that these relationships need continued fostering and buy-in. And I think I took my foot off the gas a bit and assuming that everybody, was continuing to like understand and trust where we're going, and um, that things were just really clear. And at the same time, our coaches and teams, were dealing with so many changes in the landscape, so many other competing factors that I wish I would have spent even more time verbalizing and showing, hey, here's the adjustments we're making. Here's how we're rethinking, when we place students in internships. Here's how we're supporting your team further by hiring another mental performance consultant, and just being clear about those pieces, because it's an ongoing effort to continue to build that relationship. And now that I'm a sport administrator, I can see how this work isn't top of mind for our coaches
Yeah.
sometimes. And there's such a driver to this working. And we rely on doing great work and our coaches stressing the importance of developing the whole person and why that matters. So that's what
So
comes to mind around change.
right. So you feel like if you would have, I guess, using your words, kept the foot on the gas at the beginning, then you wouldn't be almost having to continue to re-educate now. Tell me about that relative to now. Like, are you feel like you have to keep re-educating, keep stressing the importance now, and you feel like that wouldn't have been the case if you would have just kind of constantly done it from the beginning? Is that what you're saying?
I think continuing to bring them along and not assuming everybody was all like once we had the initial buy-in,
Oh,
like
okay.
continuing to double down on that and
All right.
um, walk alongside our coaches and teams further. I also think that as a department, w we obviously really prioritize student athlete development, and this organization is a big part of our AD's legacy, and at the same time, I could have spent more time making sure that the student athlete experience and student athlete development was front of mind and front of conversation, even when revenue and external affairs and so many other things or stressors are pulling at our department.
Yeah.
So I think that's what yeah, that those things from a staff and organizational perspective
Yeah, that's a
come up.
it's an interesting conundrum there because you think about somebody who's in the head coaching position, while they may believe that this part of the student athlete development is important for them to perform well on the field, the one part they'll probably focus on is that mental performance part, right?
Yes,
And then they still have their own, I still have to win, and so I can feed my kids at home and win as a coach. So the football part is probably the biggest bullet point I have to deal with. And then you get somebody who's fundraising or revenue generation. Yeah, I understand that's important, but I really got to get out. Everybody has their own thing which they think is important. And then you have to try to say, hey, all what we do ties into what you do. And you need to understand why this should be the sub bullet point right under your biggest bullet point too. So I think that's the fight that everybody in student athlete development probably has to deal with across the country. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's still not in a place where student athlete development is synonymous with having athletic trainers and
Right.
strength and conditioning, and it's still not seen as just integrated part. And so how do we continue to push the field? I'm actually giving a TED Talk on that in August
Oh, really?
to yes, I just care so deeply that this is integral to intercollegiate athletics, and I'm trying to do my part to help set that
Where
standard and tell.
is it like a TEDx? Or are you like going on the big stage, big TED talk? Tell me where is that happening?
I should say it's TEDx. I
Okay.
hope one day it'll be TED. I'm grateful, so grateful for the opportunity. It's gonna be in Folsom, California, which is right outside of Sacramento in mid-August.
Oh, yeah. Super
Yes.
interesting. Do you know who the audience will be?
It will be the greater Sacramento area, and I'm hoping it'll be a broad audience once it's on the TEDx TED
Okay.
station, and I'd like to really help our field in this way.
What's the if you can answer this before the actual TEDx lecture, the underlying thought, is it that, hey, understanding that developing the whole person is about the success of not only that institution and the individual as a student athlete, but the people we put out in the world and future of this country and society. Is that it? Did I just sum that up, or that just came off the top? Give me the gist of the TEDx so we can tease it so that when it comes out, everybody will watch it.
Oh, thank you. You nailed it. It's
Okay.
if we develop the whole person behind the performer, we're actually impacting the bottom line of athletic departments and setting them up for exponential success in the world. And I am going to expose that we spend billions of dollars as an industry on a lot of different things, and less than 5% of those budgets are dedicated to the support staff and practitioners across mental health, applied sports psychology, career development, life skills, community engagement. And how do we change that? And
Right.
I have a few calls to action, a few powerful stories to bring to life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you're just calling everybody to the floor. Like, hey, we spending these billions of dollars, but what's really going to the student athletes? I love that. One other
And
thing you
also,
go
I
ahead.
am going to just a really quick tie. Also, our coaches, they are experiencing so much burnout and stress. What do we do to develop them?
Uh-huh.
And I want the field to move more towards uh, like, how can we be the best at developing people? It's like not enough to select the right people. It's not enough to steward them, when they leave. It's like, what is the actual development at a world class level with data look like? And how do we make sure every single part of the athletic department is mapping up to those outcomes of those athletes and teams in a very integrated, holistic way? So that's my
Yeah.
uh, that's a further expansion of that.
No, it's great. Focus on the student athlete instead of just figuring out how to bring in revenue, right? Um, you mentioned that you have to you were involved in fundraising to get an endowment where you want the endowment to be. Does that mean you're like cultivating, sitting down, asking somebody to give you 2.3 million? Like, tell me about you being involved with fundraising. What does that mean?
This is a part of my role that I love and appreciate that I've been able to do. I
Okay.
think it's something that we need to do in student athlete development more. What it's looked like is a deep partnership with our Cal Athletics Fund team. Very grateful for their prioritization of this work. We've created collateral, so menus of like, here's the items that are really going to help move the needle for the Institute. We do speaking engagements. I talk a lot at different donor events. And we also have an advisory board. So there's 12 members, they all are donors, and I report out to them on behalf of the team. My teammates also, I bring them in because they're the ones doing the incredible work. I want them to have the exposure to the donors as well. We report out 3 times a year to make sure we're accountable. And then I also go into conversations with our donor team. And so I'm sort of they do such a great job cultivating along the way, and then they bring me or some of my teammates in when it's time to really get down to the impact and the story. And with Brian Cameron, I was able to ask him for an additional $3 million endowment to support the expansion of our team and ensuring that we keep and retain such a great group of professionals. And he was amazing to come forward with that. And we made it a matching campaign. And it wasn't just me, though. It was all those years of stewardship from others. It was us demonstrating that we are providing a lot of impact. And it's been great exposure. I also want to share we brought in alums and mentors to support our student athletes on the career side, and we've been able to turn 1 in every 7 of them into donors. And so providing them with a great experience, helping them feel re-engaged with the university has turned into additional donations. And um, it's just a really important part of our work.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there.
Thanks, Ty. And we're going to bring in the Alumni Letter Winner Society in-house too. And
Okay.
I'm going to shout out Rice. They do a great job of this. So student athlete development, applied sports psychology, and alumni engagement all under this umbrella. And now we're going to have even more stewardship opportunities, bringing our alums in to support our students and hopefully turning that into philanthropic efforts.
Yeah, I like that. So hold all the way through, right? As a student athlete, while you're here, and then while you're gone, we bring it back in house. Do you see the Letter Winners Association as just a maybe you can't even answer this publicly, but do you see it as just a fundraising opportunity, or like a friend of mine at Baylor, he led their Letter Winners for a long time, Walter Abercrombie, and he wanted to create it. He wanted it to be an experience. So letter
Yeah,
winners came back to home football games. They fed them. It was like you're joining a social club almost, right? Not
yeah.
just a philanthropic opportunity, but this is also an experience to engage with the current students, engage with the university, bringing people back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about that aspect of it. And it sounds like this is is this a new strategic part of a new strategic plan, or like the finishing up of the old strategic plan part that you're on?
This is a new strategic initiative. And when they approached us, we initially thought it would go under the development shop, and they pushed back big time to answer your question because they didn't want this to be seen as solely a move to increase donations. And so it'll be a partnership. It'll be housed in the Cameron Institute with a deep partnership with our Cal Athletics Fund team. And the goal really is 3 things. One, we want to bring as many of our amazing alums in to provide career opportunities for our student athletes, mentorships, job shadows, um, everything that they can. They're such an incredible resource. The second is we want this to be a true pipeline for our seniors and more of a celebratory transition to alum, and how do we get them set for this new community that they'll be a part of. And then we also are thinking about how do we serve our football and men's basketball, women's basketball alums that didn't get support because they were maybe here for a semester or a year, or it just wasn't possible to focus on other things. And then they'll be engaged in all of our development events like tailgates and
Right.
Hall of Fame and all the amazing events that that team puts on. And then we expect and think that that will then yield more indirectly these donations and support.
Oh, yeah, it will. I mean, if anything, like, Bill Walter built at Baylor for all the 15 or 20 years he was down there, it's like you create the experience for people to continue to have an experience with the university, and it's good that they push back, so they don't wanna don't just as soon as I show up, you start asking me for money, but if I show up and you welcome me, even somebody who was there like a semester or 2 seasons or something, maybe they didn't graduate, but they're still a letter winner, they can come back, have the Cal experience, and opportunities come up and they say, well, how can I get involved with that? The question, right? How can I help, kind of situation? And then that makes you happy when you hear that question. I think that's great. I think this is a excellent thing that you're doing over there at Cal. I asked this final question and we'll wrap. One thing you mentioned is that you do have sport administration. Tell me about your approach to being a sport administrator there at Cal.
Actually, think that sport administration is one of the most critical and undervalued role in college athletics. And so I've done some studying on what general managers do in professional sport, what do general managers do in corporate industries, and I've put together a framework that helps guide my work overseeing my 6 sports. And so it's roster management, it's the personnel, it's the operational excellence and using data and metrics to inform all of the developmental work, and it's engaging our stakeholders. And so moving away from more of an operational lens to sport administrator to a more visionary strategic support role where you are truly being that leader of your coach who coaches, you know, ultimately they're leading the program, but you're being a strategic partner in a more professional way. And that's something I've worked to employ in my time at Cal.
Yeah, I find that interesting. I guess those things tie into the overarching, I guess, like strategy you build in terms of being able to measure the outcomes for student athlete experience too, right?
Exactly. If the sport administrator has the direction from the athletic director of what success is for that program, uh, what the resources are going to be to support that, and then together with the coach, they're identifying the key metrics that help win. They are having individualized plans for every student athlete, and all the support units are helping build towards those plans. That's really when the system is optimizing and full of so much potential.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. Well, Dr. Nichols, the conversation has been excellent. I do have one more question. You'll forgive me because the questions pop in my mind all the time. Let's say you had 3 bullet points to explain what you do slash have done there at Cal. How would you explain those 3 bullet points?
I love it. I love it. The first is I'm a builder and leader at heart, and I've been able to build a high performing organization from the ground up, an incredible team of 11 who's delivered measurable outcomes across mental performance, career support, community engagement, and overall experience. The second I would say is the ability to be effective across multiple stakeholders. I had an AD once tell me I needed to be more like a chameleon. I took that to heart and I was able to really think about how do I engage with donors and alums, our coaches, our student athletes, and be really effective. And that's been really supportive in my role in fundraising, especially. And the third is taking a ROI and measurement approach to development and going all in on development. So the sport administrator is the general manager is helping set the KPIs, all of the success metrics with the coach, and all of the developmental support that maps up to that is critical in ensuring success. And I think where our industry has the opportunity to go.
I think that's excellent. I'm gonna try to couch that. Building organizations, right, for success, having the conversation with people that can resource the organizations for success, and then putting the evaluation points and KPIs in place so you can measure the success of the things that you've built and resourced, sounds like. Yeah.
I love it. Well done. Well
Look,
done. Mic drop.
that's hilarious. And all under the lens for you of student athlete experience, which I think is excellent. You hit a whole bunch of things. You talk about the sport administration, talk about student athlete experience, the Cameron Institute. Dr. Marissa Nichols, this has been an excellent conversation. We really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Tai. Thank you for your incredible leadership to our field. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was Dr. Marissa Nichols. She is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Student Athlete Experience and the Director of the Cameron Institute at Cal. And of course, I am Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.